Good day, podcast community. Pete Kane here, Podcast Pete and certified high performance coach. And we have a author of a book. It's soon to be out. And we see each other on a regular basis at Rotary. And she helps with our youth in our town. So I wanted to flip the script and give Charity the keys to the podcast. The power is in your hands. So Charity, thank you so much for being here. And just introduce yourself and then you can just start the questions.
Okay, thanks, Pete. Thanks for letting me sit in your seat today. I'm excited about the opportunity. My name's Charity Drabik. I am a new author writing a book entitled The Key, Escaping the Prison That Trauma Built. I'm in the final editing stages of that. I'm hoping that it will be released early next year for people to purchase and, be able to unlock their stories and go into a thriving life. So, you are usually the one guiding everyone else's stories. And I'm really excited that today we get to hear your story. And honored to be here with you today. Pete, when we were talking recently about my book, there was a moment where you became very emotional. And it surprised me, in the best way, because it showed how deeply committed that you are and how you connect with people. So before, we go into the questions I have for you, would you share what came up with you for you in that moment?
Yes. I think when you almost lose your life a number of times, like through suicide, ideology, through a massive stroke, you appreciate life and you have what we call mortality motivation. So I know how close I was to ending it. So when I hear people talk about their journey and, trauma is part of life, either become bitter or better. But when all of a sudden somebody will touch that emotional hot button, I find that I lose it. I was talking to Christina, and I would always be amazed how she could share, like when we're at Rotary, a few things that were going on when we have sunshine. And I told her, I said, I don't think I'm strong enough to go down that path, because as soon as I hit on that emotional whatever, I just lose it to the point I can't talk. So I think it was just 49 days I had to think about life. This was after the stroke. And I was a nurse there. It was the beginning of the Ukraine war. And we had a lot of good conversations. And she said to me, she said, Pete, can I share something with you that's personal? I said, absolutely. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. And she said, the type of stroke you had, most don't survive. And if they survive, they're worse than you. And I'm going half my body's not working, learning how to eat, talk, feed myself, all these kind of things. I'm going worse than that. And I was going dang, that kind of gave me a perspective of the value of life and surviving. So I guess I approach every single day like it's my last, because one day I'm going to be right. But until then, I'm going to have the best time. I'm going to try to make the biggest impact I can. So when we're talking about your story, it absolutely just captivates. It hits to the core of really my emotion, because I think trauma is, everybody has it. We don't always use it to help others. We don't always use it to release a book that will help inspire people. And I love it when I hear people talk about wanting to use their story to help others. And so I think the emotion just hits me, and and then it just hits me. And I try to use humor to get out of it, and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, it just, I mean, it overwhelms me at times.
Yeah. That is an amazing story, Pete, that, overcoming a stroke is such a challenge. And for you to come over on the other side of it and really just be this big personality and show other people that when you don't give up, you can make a difference, because many people just give up and sit in what they lost.
Yeah.
So what did you do that helped you move past the reality of your new reality into, being this personality that you are and, coaching other people?
Great question. So I think, learning, I mean, waking up, it was a cold room, white. I'm like, my first thought, I'm in heaven. I mean, it was like, I couldn't, like, it was like processing. You're waking up and you're seeing this bright white. And then all of a sudden people, are there coming that you recognize, and you realize that, no, that's not where you are, but you're in a hospital bed and your left side's completely gone. And I saw the outpour of people that, the cards, just the general love that you I think it's just the overwhelming love you feel when you're most vulnerable. I heard somebody say it's when God touches you when you're at your lowest.
Yes.
You realize you're not alone, that He's there with you, that you lean into your faith. I mean, I'm a believer for, many, many years. I always approached men's group and going to church and reading my Bible, but I would always read it because I felt I had to.
Mm.
I had 49 days to think. It was kind of like a different thought process. And, I would love getting up. I would convince the nurse that get me up at 5 o'clock, because when they changed at 7, it was so hectic for that hour, you couldn't get out of bed. And they had to help me get out of bed. But I'd say, can you get me up as early as you possibly can? And I would go out, wheel out in the wheelchair, get a cup of coffee, and greet people as they came to work. And it was kind of like just the joy of being alive. I always loved greeting, whatever I did, but it was just humbling because you have zero left side.
Mm-hmm.
Even to this day, I would get up early, and I was a runner, and I played golf. And I'd play golf at 5 o'clock. After I'd get up early, like 5 o'clock, I'd work my butt off. Then I'd go play golf, be outside. And it was like, couldn't play golf, couldn't run. So two things that I used to kind of like my unwinding, my kind of my quiet time, so to speak. And so I wasn't able to do either one of them. So I had to kind of figure out, well, how am I going to get that? And I got it from one, podcasting, because I had to learn how to talk. And my boss, my partner said, "Hey, Pete, you love to play golf. Why don't you podcast?" And I had to learn how to talk because my left side was drooping down, and you're just learning. And so it helped me to talk, and I learned how to journal, which helped my desire to run. Because when I would run, I would just the ideas would flow, and
Mhm.
thinking I would always I love that time. But I to this day I can't run. So, but journaling, I have journaled more than 16 journals. I write every single day, and I just have been able to express more of who I think, my journey, the self-awareness, all that really has kind of, I don't know what you would say it did, but it kind of gave me new life into appreciating things. Because after every podcast, and it's funny, I usually, some days I have zero, but
Mhm.
some days I have back to back to back, like I did today. This is
Mhm.
and after each one, I just write what I learned, what so it's kind of like, it helps my learning, it helps my curiosity, it helps me stay connected. Because even driving, I don't like to drive, I don't drive at night. And so my connection to people is podcasting. So,
Mhm.
and I love Thursday morning at Rotary, because that's the only time I go.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of like a caged kind of person I'm just want to be around people.
Right.
Haven't, because I don't do the local networking and all the things that a lot of people do. It's just Rotary and podcasting. That's all I do. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I sometimes ramble on.
Yeah, you did. And, you said something earlier talking about when you went out to meet people when you were recovering in the hospital,
Mm,
and talking about how you were being grateful and being out there with people. And I write about that in my book, where having gratitude
mm,
and shifting the focus away from yourself
yes.
into the positive that is in our life actually helps us to turn the corner
Yep.
and get out of that victim mentality that a lot of us live in without knowing about it.
Mm,
And so that was just like spot on there. So you said that this stroke is kind of why you got into podcasting. What is your like favorite part of the podcasting? What?
wow. I love that. I had a person yesterday, and he's a golfer, a buddy, he's a coach, and he asked me the exact question. I mean, I love it. I told him, I said, that was your best question. Okay. What I love the most is asking people, we all go through difficult times.
Mm,
How did you grow through your trauma? And that's probably my favorite by a long shot, because it really, I love growth. I love, like, I had a guy, it was probably about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half. And he said, like, we all are aware of PTSD.
mhm.
And he said, what I do is PTSG. And he said, the G is growth.
Okay.
He grew up at age 5 in a concentration camp in Russia. So it's not like your typical preschool. You're learning things at 5 years old that most kids never learn.
Mm,
So he went on to be an accomplished singer in Russia, and he's doing some amazing things. But he talked about the growth that came from that trauma and what it did to shape his life. Wrote a book about, it was a love story with an immigrant, and he talked about the love of our country, and he just talked about he saw the ugly side of the world, where
mhm,
you don't have those freedoms. And he just said that he grew so much. So I just think, because I grew up dyslexic, and I
mm,
grew up with ADD, so I have an active brain, and my processing. I flunked English in high school, so I took me summer school to get out of high school. I flunked out, tried 2 temps at Virginia Tech. Both times I failed. So academics was never my thing. Never. I mean, I flunked more stuff than I passed.
Mm.
But I didn't know about it. It was my superpower until I had my stroke. So I could slow down and not be on, like I was always the try to do as much as I possibly can. And I had a digital marketing business, but I had 5 part-time employees, that, and when I had my stroke, they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what to do. It was all
Yeah.
me because I was a workaholic, but it just kind of like the business just went like just dissolved. My partner took 2 of my clients, but I had 2 people that one, I grew up with them in high school, and one anonymous that wrote checks for $10,000. And because when your business shuts down and your cash flow goes to zero,
Yeah.
practically, I mean, it still went on a little bit. You got you got to survive. So it was like those kind of things, and there was others. I mean, it was overwhelming the support that came from that.
You know, it's amazing how people will step up when they see that there's a need.
Mm-hmm.
And you're blessed to have some really good relationships with people. It speaks volumes of you as a person. You said something, the PTSD. I love that. I think many people, when they think about growth, they think about reading books, studying, really just adding to information that they already have. But through that, they're really not doing any growth.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the growth comes from going to the past and understanding why.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at like your past, have you looked at, your why of the trauma you were stuck into so that you're actually making a transformation versus just living, thinking you're growing? Because in that growth, a lot of us are doing well. And on the outside, it looks like we're successful, but where it matters on our authentic self, we are stunted because we're not really growing. So can you share, how that kind of hits you and your thoughts on that?
Ooh, I love that. I would say, like, you're right about the growth. People will buy books thinking they just bought it.
Mm.
That's going to make it better. But it's applying anything we do, whatever it is. And I think life is the best lesson for anything. And yes, do I read a lot of books? Do I listen to a lot of podcasts? Yes. But I try now to apply it. I apply it intentionally to get better today than I was yesterday. And I'm a fanatic on scheduling and journaling. But here's the one thing that I never had before I had a stroke. I now schedule differently than I ever did. I have dates with my granddaughters. I have dates with my daughters. I have dates with my son-in-laws, and I prioritize personal things.
Yeah.
I don't just, like, when I am on a podcast, I'm present. When I am with a person, I'm present. I am present everywhere I can, and I force myself to focus and be present. And I think it's like I wear 2 color shoes for one reason. It happened by accident, but I will do it for one reason: to have conversations with people. I just love conversations. And people say, "Hey, you colorblind," and they'll say different things. And it just leads to conversations. And it's meaningful conversations because I like to ask, questions about people's journey. I don't like to be just the how's the weather? Hey,
Mm.
how did the football team do? Those are just icebreakers, but I like to go deeper into meaningful conversations. And I think what I realized is the depth of connection is those meaningful conversations that get below the surface, like, hey, how you doing? I'm doing great. And I'm not really doing great, but I just feel I got to tell people that.
Yeah.
I just like to say, tell me about what has happened in your life that you're excited about this week, or what have you, just questions that get people to think. And then I love absorbing the response and just having those conversations.
So it's interesting because I think many of us hide behind the surface level
Mhm.
because we are trying to make ourselves look good or not look bad.
Yes.
And you do have a really um, unique way of connecting with people and helping them to feel seen and heard. Um, you're inviting people onto your podcast so that you're giving them opportunities so you get to know them, right? And they have those opportunities to know themselves better through the work that you're doing today.
Hmm.
Um, how do part of what I heard you say is you like to unlock people's potential when you're talking with them and having conversations. So, what potential did you first unlock in yourself?
Learning to love yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good one. Um, I know
And
for
value in yourself. And, I think because we're in a very impactful Rotary, and I've
yes.
seen patterns. And I would ask, this was probably a year or two ago, whatever, it was early on, and I'd ask people to be on the podcast. What I noticed, people that serve, they're used to being, they don't want any credit, they just want to serve.
Mhm.
They think that a podcast is being like a Kardashian where they're shining. Hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. But it's actually the opposite. Is if you have something that you're doing that you want the world to know, you got to shine out, just like a book. If you don't write the book, how can people read your mind? I mean, they can't. They
Yeah.
can't read your mind. They don't know. But if you don't get it out in the universe, people can't benefit from it. So you, in your journey, you're learning and you're growing. And if you don't shine out, which I think that's why I love podcasting, because stories people remember. I remember I've done 500, I think, and then plenty of videos. I know everybody's story, and it's so powerful to be able to remember the stories. And it can be 2 3 years that I haven't talked to them, but I can call them up and I know their story, so I have an immediate kind of connection that is just, I mean, it's beautiful. And that's why I'm helping people create podcasts. I'm helping people leveraging podcasts, because it is the most intimate, I think, intimate connections we can ever have. Because the quality of our life, I heard somebody say, I think it was Tony Robbins, I'm not sure. Quality of our life is the quality of our relationships. So if I'm doing, and I do a lot of podcasts, I'm having so many quality relationships through my podcast. I can't wait to get up. I have trouble sleeping sometimes because I can't wait to get started. And so I could be doing it. I get up at 2:33. I got up at 2:30 today, but I could be doing a podcast at 5:30. And so I've been up for 13 hours and I just get so fired up that it's not like I'm winding down. I mean, I try to manage my energy by talking to people because I talk to at least 5 people every afternoon. And I want to have meaningful conversations with people just to see how they're doing and if I can encourage them, if I can just help them get connected to different people. So I think of podcasting is just the breath of my excitement of connections and
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah, I totally get that. For you, it's podcast. For me, it's the book to begin with, right? It's getting my story, my experiences, the stories of other women that have contributed to this book, um, getting it out there on paper, because so many times we don't open up, we don't share because we are ashamed of what we allowed or what we say we allowed to happen when really it wasn't our fault, but we put the blame on ourselves because we can change our actions. We can't change somebody else's actions. And that's why people blame themselves. Because by blaming yourself, it's like, okay, I did that. What can I do differently so that doesn't happen again? Right. And so I think the powerful word in what you're doing and what I'm doing and what hopefully other people are encouraged to do through both of our works is to get out there and share so that their story's not in the dark anymore or in the prison, right? They're walking outside of the prison into light where they don't have to be burdened by their past and their experiences that were keeping them small. So I wonder, was there ever a time that you felt like you were inside of a prison?
Oh yeah, many times, my whole life.
Can you
And
share a little bit about that?
yeah, so at 18, it was the first year they wouldn't give you a blank diploma. So
Mm,
here you are. My friends called me Mr. Senior. We're just joking around. I love to talk to people. So they decide that you're not going to walk. So I'm picking up range balls when my class is graduating. So everybody's coming. Hey, well, we're sorry you couldn't. All that kind of stuff. And like, they shouldn't do that. Hey, it happened. I flunked English. I wasn't even close. But here's what after that, I realized that academics was going to be a tough path because I just would fail everything. But I couldn't really share that. It's kind of like when email came about, which was many years ago, every time I hit the send button, it was like fear would hit me because
mhm,
I would misspell half the words. And you get an email and you're going, what on earth is this guy like even know how to speak the English or write the English language? So it was always a fear. I don't know if you were there, but Megan Davis with Tommy Novus kind of came and spoke to
yeah.
our, and so I mean, it really her story just tore me up because I felt I was in that prison my whole life. And special needs kids are, they're not understood by society. And so, I went and spoke to, I think it was about 8 of them. And she said afterwards, she said, I've never seen them open up to somebody like they did to you. And I said, it's because I'm one of them.
Mm,
I, un- I understand the the prison that people can feel that you can't. So I couldn't like say, hey, I'm dyslexic. Hey, I'm dyslexic. Like, who cares? They don't understand it anyway. So you're basically hiding your dyslexia your whole life. And so when you hide something, just like you said, there's power in sharing, is power in sharing your what can be perceived as shame. If you don't get it out, you hold it in and it
Mhm.
has you captive. It
Yeah.
owns you. So
Right.
till you can, and I've been addicted to drugs. There's my my journey was just like up and down, depression, suicide. It was like not the best, but every time I would learn something. But it wasn't until my stroke that I got off of Adderall. I was finally got rid of that addiction. I finally learned how to deal with just that mindset and just different things that I now it's my superpower, but it was never my superpower growing up. So I always felt like in a cage of, you know how I don't know if people would say it, but they would say they say, oh, that dizzy blonde, they because person just has a wide open mind, they just
Yeah.
say what they like and all that. I felt like I was a dizzy person because I just processed things differently. I didn't even when I had the stroke, I didn't call 911. So I lost 20 minutes of
Mm.
valuable time. People say, why didn't you call 911? I said, I have no idea. I have no idea. I just didn't process it. I called family members and they hung up and it was a mess. But if I would have called 911 right away, because every second counts when you're losing that brain, the blood to the brain.
Mhm.
So if the longer you don't have that blood circulating, the worse your stroke is going to be.
Right.
But it didn't dawn on me. And that was my whole life. Just, I answer a question and then the person would go, where did that come from? I just didn't process like normal people. So I always felt like I was in a prison, my own prison. And it was not a pleasant prison
Mm.
because it's just, I'm glad I'm alive. I can say that.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're alive too, Pete.
I can't imagine life without, you
Yeah.
know, I enjoy every minute of every day. People say, like, are you having a tough day? I don't even know what a tough day is because I know what it was.
Yeah.
So I don't have those kind of days. And it's absolutely a beautiful feeling.
So you, in your shows, you talk to people about their experiences. There's powerful stories that you learn about them. What is one of those conversations that you were able to listen to and be a part of that changed the way that you saw transformation?
Um, it's happened a lot where a person will say they'll come on and they'll like I did my first couple hundred in person, and they would say, "I'm nervous," and I would say, "That's normal. I would expect nothing else." And then we would finish the podcast, and they'd say, "That was fun. I enjoyed it. That was great." And it's like a kid on Christmas Day. It's like their eyes are sparkling, they're excited. It was just, but they went in nervous of fear of the unknown,
Yeah.
and they just came out of it with, man, this was fun. And I love that kind of transformation and I think it's just the fear of the unknown. And it
Mhm.
is because people will say, like, what if I say something? I'm saying this isn't 60 Minutes. I'm not trying to capture you, you know, embarrass you. We're just talking about you and your story is beautiful and I'd love to be part of that. But it is that first initial thing of, what if I say the wrong thing? And I say, just share your heart. Oh, that'll be another thing. But it is that transformation that from the start. And I love when people say that to me. They say, I can tell sometimes, but when they say, man, I'm nervous, now I know what to say. I didn't know exactly the first few, but I love watching people kind of start in a fearful state and transform into an enjoyable. I had some fun. I enjoyed sharing my story. And then, of course, when you spoke at the live event, my heart just fills up when I hear a person's story in that regard, because it's more intentional to put 5 minutes together than it is when you're just talking on a podcast. So you have to think it through a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody puts that, I could do it all day long, listening to people's story through 5 minutes and 3 points. So I don't know, but I think that transformation that I see, I love it when I'm able to witness it.
Yeah. I think two things. One, many people don't know how to listen. There are so many people that they are hearing the conversation.
Yep.
But they are already creating in their head the next thing they're going to say or prove your point or whatever. And they're not like being present in the moment where they can get curious and think, I wonder what that means. And I think that says a lot for our country and how we are at each other's throat. And if you don't think like me, then I'm just going to tear you down and tear you apart because I've got to be right. So have you experienced that, and how do you combat that with guests or people that you are related to?
That is a phenomenal question. And I'll give you somebody that example. I don't know where I'm always listening and learning and trying to apply what I learn. So I think I listened to a podcast or something. They said, well, you got to have these questions, and then you got to develop patterns of answers to specific questions. So I said, okay. So Sandra Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
So she was the first and only one I ever did. I had these questions that I was going to ask, and I was more focused on the questions than listening to the answers. And I got off that podcast and I said, I'll never do that again. I didn't connect. Now I have no idea what the next question is going to be because it depends on your answer. And I love listening to every single detail to take it a little deeper by just listening. So I only did one interview out of 500, one, and I threw it out. I don't even think Sandra knows, but it was funny because I was going, okay, I don't know. I just had these questions. I was trying to memorize them in my head, but I'm not too good at that. So I was just so focused on the next question that I didn't even listen to the answers, and it was not the best. And I invited her back. I said, I don't even know if I said that, but I said, I'd love to have you back on the show because I want to really ask and listen to answers because it's power in just going where the guest will allow you to go.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I will say I did the same thing preparing for this podcast is like, okay, how do I ask the questions? And at some point it's like, this isn't going to script. Throw the script away and let's just get to know Pete and be related.
Yeah, if I can, I love when I haven't done too many of the flip the script, but it has opened up my eyes to the depth of the questions. And as you can see, very emotional. And literally I struggle with communicating when, I start to lose it and I have to either, like I spoke at my mom's funeral and I had to have an anchor, and I had some of my high school buddies and I said, all right, you got to help me through it because of being emotional and it was a very emotional talk. And I joked that they were in Speedo bathing suits. When I look over there, I'd say Speedo, and it would help me to snap out of just going south with my emotions.
Yeah.
So I always have to have humor to get me back on track, or I can't even get the voice, can't get the words out.
So
So,
have you always been emotional like that, or did that really take place after the stroke?
well, it amplified it. Like, I don't know, from what I can gather, the emotion of laughing and crying was exaggerated. I was always an emotional person, but not to the extent after the stroke. So
Mhm.
it took me a long time to be able to
Yeah.
talk when somebody would mention something emotional, like the movie, Tom Cruise movie Top Gun. I think the replay of it, I was weeping through it,
Mm.
and I'm not weeping, but emotional. And that's not like an emotional movie, really. But there are certain things in it that would hit me that I would tear up and kind of get emotional. So I think there's something that was jeopardized in the part of the brain that handles emotion. So I wasn't as bad as I am today. And I'm always getting better because I have to learn how to breathe. I got to learn how to just slow down and breathe. They always said it at Shepherd, breathe,
Mhm.
breathe. I have a breathe machine because you got to learn breathing helps everything, whether it's just it you when you lose your emotion, you're not breathing because
Mhm.
it's just, I don't know what the tie is to it, but there is a lot to be said with slowing down your breathing, breathing in and getting you know, your
Mhm.
getting back on track.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're kind of getting to the end of time here. I really appreciated the time talking today with you, getting to know a little bit more about you. Um, I am curious, what is if you could look 10 years down the line, where is it that you see Pete Kane in your podcast, and what is that would define your life for you going forward?
Dang, that is an absolutely phenomenal question. I would say so. The answer, I want to make the biggest impact. I want thousands, thousands of people that have their own show, because I think a show is almost like a book. It's
Mhm.
a way to inspire, influence, and touch people on a personal level to really get them, because I love books. I love how people, when they write books of an impact, because just getting it out so the family, friends, people that don't even know you can get to know you through your journey. And I think, when I look at, just like you said, we're at people's, if I don't agree with you, I'm yelling and screaming at you. we don't have enough grace. We don't learn. We don't understand people.
Yeah.
I don't have to believe like everybody. I mean, you don't have to believe what I believe,
Mm-mm.
but I want to respect
Yeah.
where you're coming from. I want to respect you as a person. So I see tens of thousands of podcasts all over the world. And because we have a team in the Philippines, we can produce it. And my partner is an AI specialist. We can be the lowest cost producer of anywhere in the world. So we can get people started.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and getting started is the toughest thing. That first paragraph that you started writing, that was tough because you think about it for years and you finally take that first step.
Yeah.
Then you take the second step, then the third step, then the chapters come together. Then, it just keeps evolving. But if you don't make that first step, and so what I want people to realize that their story has impact.
I will add to that. Many people, and I think you experienced this early in your life when you had fear because of what people said about you and what you made it mean, right? And so I'm sure
Yep.
that kept you small at times, not really going after your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, the quicker we fail,
Mm-hmm.
the quicker we're able to see, oh, that didn't work that well. So let me try this. And you just keep going. Because can you imagine if, some of our scientists and our inventors that took failure after failure after failure before we finally had a light bulb that worked,
Mm-hmm.
where would we be? We would be back in the dark ages. And so it takes a lot of courage to keep trying, even though you fail. And really, it's changing your mindset, right? It's not a failure.
Yeah.
Failure is when you stop and you don't keep going, you don't learn, you don't adapt. If something doesn't work, I don't call that a failure. I call that a learning experience.
Yes, absolutely. And if I could just add to that, I just thought of it. So you have the stroke, and then maybe a week later, you go see the neuro person to check
Mhm.
in with you because life just all of a sudden gets flipped up and
Yeah.
you're dealing with something you've never experienced. And I remember when I'm wheeling in to see this neuropsychologist, and she says, "How are you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing great." And then she leaned into me and she said, No, really, how are you doing?" And I said to her, I said, "You don't know my life. You don't know the perspective I have. This is just another challenge." And it was like, bring it on. But if we don't have those challenges and don't fail, we don't get stronger. So every single time we fail, we get better if we allow ourselves to. And I think I did allow myself to realize that because it was always failing, always fear that, hey, this isn't that big of a deal. Yes, I can't use my left side. However, I'm alive. And being alive is better than not. So it's just like that's why I love greeting people when they're coming. I was just happy to be alive, happy to be appreciated, like you said, being grateful. There's something magical about serving and being grateful. I was grateful that I had teams of people. It was amazing. I always said I went from WellStar, which there was some circumstances. This was like right after COVID. It was not the good time to be in there. I had 10 days in WellStar, which I tell people in respect, there were some good people there. It was like hell because there were some things going on in our country that weren't too good. and I was in the middle of it. I go to Shepherd. It was like heaven on earth. It was the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. Still stay in touch with them with different things. And I even interviewed Jamie Shepherd afterwards because I couldn't believe how insurance pays for it, but how you can provide the most incredible care, and the culture is off the chain, the best I've ever seen in my life by 10 times. But I got a chance to see the difference. It was almost like God's way of giving you a perspective of life. And it was just beautiful. And I'm just grateful for, the number of people that helped me get better.
Yeah, I have a very strong faith in God too. And there are numerous stories in the Bible where God uses ordinary people to extraordinary things. Mm-hmm. And their lives did not start out perfect. They had problems just like we do. But I know you probably see this as well as I do. I look back on my life, and while I would not wish the experiences that I went through on somebody else, mm-hmm. I can see how God has used those experiences to bring me to this point in my life where I can write the book, share my story, so that I can help other people get out of their prison, not waiting until they're 60 years old like I am, to be able to have a life that is free and full and not held back from all of the stories they tell themselves that are not true.
Yes.
And so thank you for what you're doing for the community and who you are, and bringing that joy every day to the life of so many people.
Well, I'll steal a phrase from Chick-fil-A. My pleasure. And I'll say this, Charity. I get a chance to learn from people every single day. And when I don't know how it came about, but we were talking about, people have questions about certain things. And I said, well, what? Let's just flip the script and let's allow people to just ask any question they want. Your questions were by far the best I've ever had. By far. Your ability to connect. I haven't been this emotional in a while. I mean, yes, I do lose it from time to time, but you hit on every emotional button I have in my body. So that, and I think that's what gives me the greatest joy, is those kind of connections that you just don't get in, because we're so busy being busy. And when you have a chance to hit to my core, which you did numerous times, and I'm just glad I was able to not lose it completely.
Yeah, I was glad I wasn't going to have to come up with a joke for you, because I don't do jokes very well.
But yes, that was wonderful. I just thank you so much for, just going to the depth of questions, which it gives me a lot of joy to be able to kind of learn from what happened. I don't get a chance to really share much because I love finding other people's, but we all, have to address our past.
Yeah.
And we have to learn from it. And great questions, great time. Thank you so much for being so good at asking questions. And let me just put up on the screen for people that, if you want to get a hold of Charity, here's how you can get a hold of her. And if you need anything, I'm like, obviously she was interviewing me, but we've done a podcast. She's been on our live event. If you have a book in you, you have experiences, and you don't want to be in that cage your whole life, you want to get it out, talk to Charity, because somebody that's done it that's written that book, that's about to unleash it to the world the first part of next year, that's an incredible thing. Absolutely incredible. And we want more people to be inspired to get out of that cage. There's nothing good in a cage.
Nope.
Yeah, nothing good.
Nope. Not at all. Thanks, Pete.
All right. Thank you, Charity. We appreciate you.